Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. The Green Party may hold the balance of power after the election results are finalized. Party Leader Sonia Furstenau will speak in about an hour to media. We'll bring that to you live on CBC British Columbia's YouTube page, cbc.ca/BC, and on the CBC News app. Up first, the Bank of Canada's interest rate cut. Is it good news for you? We'll hear from the Mortgage Brokers Association. At 12:30, some Burnaby high schools are so crowded, the district may stagger class schedules. Is that a good solution? I'm Michelle Elliott. Welcome to BC Today.
Today we lowered the policy rate by 50 basis points. This is our fourth consecutive decrease since June and brings our policy rate to 3.75%.
That is Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem speaking this morning. And Macklem signaled there may be another cut in the near future. This all comes after a rapid increase in interest rates from 2022 to 2023, which shook nerves in the housing market and among homeowners. We're asking you, how does today's Bank of Canada interest rate cut affect you? Is it good news for your mortgage or your plans to buy or sell a home? What do you think this means for the housing market? You can call us now, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. You can also send us an email, bctoday@cbc.ca. Joining me now is Rebecca Casey, President of the Canadian Mortgage Brokers Association, BC. Good afternoon. Thanks for being with us.
Hi, Michelle. Thanks for having me.
Not a surprise today, but what's your reaction to this rate cut?
Yeah, very delighted. I'm personally in a variable rate mortgage, so I'm personally going to feel the benefit of
Speaking for a friend, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm here to say. It's a welcome support and will immediately alleviate some financial pressure for families who have dealt with increases in their payments riding a variable rate mortgage. It will also immediately impact people who are looking to enter the market because it opens up a little bit more buying power for people. So it's a wonderful signal from the government that we're very excited about.
Can you remind us what impact did those consecutive rate hikes have on especially homeowners with those variable mortgages?
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's two different kinds of variable rate mortgages, which I think a lot of people don't fully understand. So there are variable rate mortgages where your payments are impacted with every single shift. You feel an increase in your payments with every single shift. And then there are variable rate mortgages where your payments don't increase, but you're applying less of your payment towards the principal of your mortgage. There are people who ended up where their payment was no longer covering that interest, and so interest was beginning to accumulate. So their mortgage was actually growing instead of shrinking, mortgage balance. So it's been substantially difficult for Canadian families who have been riding that wave. And there's multiple reasons why people stay in a variable. It's not just about the interest rate. There's more offered flexibility in a variable rate mortgage. At the time of taking the mortgage out, qualifying for the mortgage would have been easier in a variable rate. So there's so much more to the story. So with this cut today, people who are in that situation will see a relief of $30 per month per 100,000 that they owe. So, let's say there's a family with a $500,000 mortgage, they're going to feel $150 a month less per payment, which is substantial, with the cost of everything creeping up. That's welcome. That's helpful.
And there is a large number of mortgages that are up for renewal this year as well as next year. Perhaps we can go through some of them because some people have already renewed. Will this have any impact on them? I guess that depends on what they have signed up for.
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot of fear around that. As a mortgage broker, I take countless calls and emails per day from people in my community saying, I'm worried, I'm up for renewal in 3 to 6 months. I don't think I can stomach the increase in my payments. Now, there's a lot of levers you can pull and a lot of strategy you can deploy to try and keep payments manageable for families. However, the greatest measure are these rate cuts. It's a signal of hope and, release of the pressure of these rising housing costs. Now, people who are in fixed rate mortgages, there's no change for them. This announcement doesn't mean anything unless you have a fixed rate mortgage that you're looking ahead to renew. I do want to comment too that, with these rate cuts, people often expect fixed rates to drop immediately, and they don't. The Bank of Canada moves the overnight rate, which moves each lender's prime rate. So we just saw a prime rate for most banks go from 6.45 to 5.95, but that doesn't mean we're going to see reduction in fixed rates immediately. That's not necessarily the measure that moves those rates. So
why is that? Why is that more? Why does it lag behind?
Yeah, so the fixed rates move alongside the bond yields, not so much alongside the Bank of Canada overnight rate. So what drives the bond yields tends to drive the fixed rates. So we actually saw a spike in bond yields today, which has a few of us kind of sweating a little bit, thinking, are we going to see fixed rates come up a little bit while variable rates come down? So that those two do not move in parallel, and I think it's really important for people to understand that. Today's announcement primarily affects those already in a variable rate or those taking out a variable rate. And where fixed rates land is still remains to be seen, because there's a lot of factors driving those rates in behind the scenes.
Okay, good distinction to make. My guest is Rebecca Casey, president of the Canadian Mortgage Brokers Association in BC. And we are asking you, in light of the Bank of Canada deciding on an interest rate cut this time. We sort of got used to saying interest rate hikes for a couple of years there, but it is a cut of 0.5% to 3.75, 0.5 percentage points to 3.75. What does that mean for you? Are you someone who's been waiting to get into the market? Are you hoping to be a first-time home buyer? Does this affect you? Are you a homeowner? And let us know how this rate cut affects you. How do you think this affects the housing market overall in BC? Will it help to make things more affordable? Love to hear your thoughts. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. I'll give that number out again, and then I'll ask my guest, Rebecca. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. And yes, I did absolutely want to ask you that question. When we talk about housing affordability in BC, it is such a dire and really emotional issue for people. How much does the mortgage interest rate account for that?
Yeah, I do appreciate that it is an emotional conversation, and one that often feels uncomfortable and contentious because of the fact that housing is a necessity. People need a house to live in, and interest rates impact the market, and it's not just people who own houses, it's people who rent houses that are impacted by all of this as well. So it's all very connected. Interest rate decreases do tend to spur up a little bit of action in the market. That's without a doubt something that we are looking at and bracing for to a degree. This interest rate decrease does offer somewhere between $45,000 and $50,000 of extra buying power for people looking to enter the market. That's not a little number. That will help somebody on the sidelines get into their first apartment or condo or townhouse, without a doubt. Does interest rate increases or decreases affect housing prices? To a degree, I'm sure, but the biggest driving factor is actually the supply and demand problem. Particularly in markets like Vancouver and Toronto, we just do not have enough units to house the number of people here. So until we see some, more inventory on the market, or it's hard to say how that problem will be solved. So interest rate decreases allow a little bit more activity because it makes housing more affordable, more accessible for Canadians. But does it solve the problem? No, definitely not.
Interestingly, I heard an interview this morning with the BC Real Estate Association saying something similar, that the housing market was still slow, remained about 25% below normal in the Lower Mainland anyway until this month. It's starting to pick up, but whether we see prices, that impact on the prices remains to be seen. So for first-time home buyers, let's say, who are looking at this, and yes, the amount of supply and all of that will affect housing prices as well. But if they're thinking about it now, if they're encouraged, what could be done to ensure they don't overextend themselves?
Yeah, that's a good one. It's very challenging for a first-time home buyer to make the jump into home ownership, especially if they feel they're pushed to the brink of their budget. So something that I do with some of my first-time home buyer clients when we're talking about, their first big purchase, is we calculate what their future mortgage payment will be, and we subtract the rent that they're currently paying. And if there's a gap, we set up an automatic pre-authorized payment into a separate account. So they're practicing making those mortgage payments before they get in. We also get them to include any potential strata fees and property taxes and utilities so that they really feel like they have practiced making those payments. And a few months of that is a quick indicator of, whether or not they're going to be able to tolerate that or not. What we also see a lot of is support from family. So, a lot of intergenerational equity, wealth transfer happening, which I recognize, I'm very cognizant of the fact that not every person is offered that kind of support, but
Right.
that's what a lot of families are doing. We're seeing an uprising in things like reverse mortgages and home equity lines of credit from parents who own properties with very little mortgage or no mortgage at all, because they recognize that the only way their children are going to be in a position to enter the housing market at these price points is with support through family, through intergenerational equity or wealth transfer.
Wow. Would you say that's unprecedented?
I would say it's definitely on the rise. I mean, we're just seeing more of it. It just makes more sense now. If you think about a parent who is, retired and they own a property worth, several million, and the idea is that when they eventually downsize, they would be passing on some of that wealth to their children. It's kind of like, why wouldn't you help them get into the market and build equity now? And not have to worry about making payments because they're in a reverse mortgage. So it's just an opportunity to help people also get into the market if that's an available option.
I'm just going to jump in because that is really interesting. I wonder if any of our audience is in that position or thinking about it. Do call us and let us know if you have been considering a reverse mortgage or a home equity line of credit to help your child be able to purchase a home. We're seeing more of that, and it sounds like that's a solution that more parents of adult children are seeking. Love to hear from you. How is that working out? Let us know. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. And you can hit pound 690, or you can send us an email if you like. It's bctoday@cbc.ca. Perhaps I'll ask you, it's a little bit theoretical, but what impact do you think that may have overall on society or on our economy?
Yeah, I do, recognize that there's some mixed feelings about that. But I think, again, when you're looking at the general, market and what an entry level townhouse, apartment, or detached house costs, the generation that is sitting on, some of these homes that are owned with very little debt on them, they started in a completely different market with completely different price points. So I do think that, generally speaking, those generations do recognize the challenges that the first time home buyer generation is facing. They recognize that an entry level townhouse that, starts at $750 to $1 million, that's just big enough to support a young growing family is a difficult leap into the
Mm,
market when, if we look back 15, 20 years ago, that same townhouse was, perhaps in the 200,000 range. So, I think we're all aware, and I think that ultimately, if there's a level of support that can be offered to help Canadians get into the market, that's a benefit
mm,
that helps for sure. Again, not everybody has that option,
sure.
and we do see people who are entering into the market with their down payment that they've saved up over years and years of accumulating their savings, and that's also great too.
Hmm.
But
What
yeah.
do you hear from first time home buyers? What is that like? The that process you talked about, practicing for that. It's such a big leap. So ensuring that your budget can afford it,
Mhm.
practicing for those payments. But as an experience right now, what is that like? Is there trepidation? Is there, we've, as you said, saved years and years and years for this, or we have gotten help from the parents, older generations. What are you hearing?
It's mixed. I mean, there are some folks that are first-time home buyers, and it's a step that they're taking because they recognize that it's going to promote stability in their life, and it's going to give them their opportunity to grow wealth through real estate. So they're kind of reluctantly making that step, and they're like not exactly thrilled about what they're able to buy because prices are high,
Hmm.
stress is high. You know, and then you get people who are just generally extremely excited about taking this step, and their expectations are in alignment with the market. So it is mixed without a doubt. But one of the things too that's been happening is that the government has announced a substantial suite of new measures aimed at first-time home buyers.
Mm-hmm.
So things like allowing a 30-year amortization, up to 1.5 million when the previous cap was 1 million. They have recently relaxed the property transfer tax exemptions. So I think that both the government and general society is coming around to the realization that housing prices are likely here to stay. And so in order to encourage and support these first-time home buyers, we have to do more. So I think that is it all amazing good news, and is everybody really excited? Not all the time.
Yeah, I
But
can imagine.
it's, yeah, it's still happening though. People are still taking the leap. People are still saving up, and families are still supporting
Hmm.
first-time home buyers entering into the market.
And so it looks like, according to Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem, we may be looking at another rate cut. They're going to meet in December. What is your advice then for people in terms of whether they're renewing or a first-time home buyer? Like what how can they plan um, for purchasing a home or renewing their
Yeah.
mortgage? Yeah.
So I mean, for the longest time through this process of quantitative tightening and interest rates going up and everything, the fixed rate mortgage has been the superior choice. Most people have wanted a short-term fix, a 3-year, 2-year fixed rate. We've seen a substantial shift into the mindset of, well, we don't know how low rates are going to go. We don't know when rates are going to stop, so we want a variable. So the general idea right now is now the variable is actually the less risky choice as we watch rates descend. If you feel fundamentally that a fixed rate is your best bet and something you feel more comfortable with, then you can lock that in next year when we get our final, final place for interest rates. When we realize that they have landed where we expect them to stay, that would be a good time to lock in. But we just don't know, and frankly, neither does the Bank of Canada at this point. Every interest rate announcement that they make is based off of data that they're collecting. So they're watching the job numbers, they're watching CPI, inflation numbers. We're also paying attention to what happens south of the border. All of these things, contribute to the decisions that are made. So nobody can tell you with certainty rates are going to be cut this many more times, this percent. We don't know. So with that in mind, the safer bet is taking a variable rate mortgage, riding those interest rate decreases down. And once we get to a place where the Bank of Canada holds or they signal that they're done, then at that point in time, you can convert your variable rate into a fixed rate mortgage.
Rebecca, it's been so good to speak with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Rebecca Casey is president of the Canadian Mortgage Brokers Association in BC. It's 12:26. Tiff Macklem is the governor of the Bank of Canada. Let's hear more of what he had to say today in Ottawa. He explained why they made a 50 basis point cut.
We took a bigger step today because inflation is now back to the 2% target, and we want to keep it close to the target. Businesses and consumer expectations of inflation have shifted down and are nearing normal. All this suggests we are back to low inflation. This is good news for Canadians. Now our focus is to maintain low, stable inflation. We need to stick the landing.
Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem speaking in Ottawa today. You can let us know what your thoughts are on this interest rate cut. Again, our email is bctoday@cbc.ca. We have an email from Natasha on the interest rate cut. Natasha writes, "You won't believe the timing, but today is my completion date as my fiance and I close on our first home together. We signed our mortgage documents yesterday, and we were extra thrilled to hear about the rate cut today, as we have a variable mortgage. Your guest is so helpful to listen to. It's been an exciting and stressful process. And without the help of others, we could never have achieved this." And for reference, we're buying a townhome in Victoria. Thanks for covering this topic. Natasha, thank you very much. Congratulations to you. I'm sure it has been stressful and exciting. Thanks for emailing us, bctoday@cbc.ca. Just about 12:30 now, and it's time for your CBC News Update with Robert Zimmerman.
Good afternoon. BC's Police Oversight Agency has been notified after an RCMP officer shot and killed a man yesterday in Penticton. The Mounties say they received several 911 calls reporting a man acting erratically and allegedly waving a knife in a residential area. They say an interaction occurred between the man and an officer, leading the officer to fire their duty pistol. The homeless camp at Vancouver's Crab Park is being closed down. City and Park Board officials are working together to close the camp, and they say they are speaking with residents to help them with the transition. At one point, there were about 150 people in dozens of tents at the site, but there are currently about 7 people in the designated camp area. And as we've been hearing on the show, for the 4th time since June, the Bank of Canada is cutting interest rates. The central bank's influential rate is now down to 3.75%. That's the lowest it's been in almost 2 years. Most analysts expect the cuts to continue into next year, with the rate potentially reaching 2% by the summer. And now the forecast on the north coast. Rain this afternoon with a high of 9. Highs to 6 degrees with strong winds and lots of sunshine in the Peace. In the central interior, including Prince George, mainly cloudy with a high of 5. Highs up to 10 with sunshine this afternoon in the Kootenays. In the southern interior, including Kelowna, mainly sunny with a high of 12. And a chance of showers this afternoon in the Fraser Valley. Some sunshine in Metro Vancouver and Greater Victoria with highs around 10. That's your CBC News update from Vancouver.
Rob, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That's Rob Zimmerman in the CBC Vancouver newsroom. And a reminder that coming up in about half an hour from now, BC Green Party leader Sonia Furstenau is scheduled to speak to media. And this will be her first time speaking publicly since Saturday's election. And to get you up to speed, it's very, very close right now, a dead heat pretty much between the NDP, who are leading or elected in 46 ridings, the Conservative were leading or elected in 45. And so that is just short of 47 needed to win a majority. And so depending on the results, the Green Party could hold the balance of power. We know yesterday from David Eby, he said he has already called the Green Party. They said they weren't ready to have those kinds of conversations just yet. We'll see what Sonia Furstenau has to say coming up at 1 o'clock. We'll carry that for you live on our YouTube page, CBC British Columbia, on our website, cbc.ca/BC. You can also catch it on the CBC News app. Well, the Burnaby School District is proposing staggered school schedules as a way to deal with overcrowding in 5 of its schools next fall. In a letter to parents, the district said they were considering changes for Alpha, Mosscrop, Burnaby Central, Burnaby North, and Burnaby Mountain High Schools. Well, CBC reporter Karen Larson spoke to some students about how they felt about the proposed changes.
Very stressful for me personally, just because I don't do good in mornings. Like, I don't even have a first period.
I've just been hearing a lot of grade 8s complain about this because most of them stay up till 1, 2.
And like, teenagers out of every age group need the most sleep statistically. So it's actually better for school to start at like 9 for teenagers than actually earlier.
Yes, what the school district is considering is an earlier start, 8 a.m. for some classes. Now, Surrey School District also started with staggered school schedules in 5 of its schools this fall. They were dealing with the same issue around overcrowding. Well, we want to hear from you. If you're a parent or you're a student, let us know what you think about staggering school schedules. Is it a workable solution for crowded schools? If you are in Surrey, you can let us know if you've experienced this school schedule, this new school schedule. Let us know how that's working. Our number is 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. And you can also email us, bctoday@cbc.ca. I have 2 guests joining me now for this. Harinder Parmar is the Burnaby District Parent Advisory Council Chair, and Morton Rand Hendrickson is a Burnaby DPAC member. Hello, thanks so much for joining us.
Hello.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Harinder, to you first. Can you explain more about how this would actually work?
The extended schedule, we have not been given a lot of details. What we've been told, like we were given an example that perhaps grade 8, that they would break up the day instead of having 4 blocks in a day, it would be 5 blocks. And then it would be broken up, say, and this is the example that was given, maybe grade 8 and 9s would be one cohort that would do blocks 1 to 4. Grade 10 and 11 would be the second cohort, they do blocks 2 to 5. And then grade 12s would get a random schedule with kind of everything in between both schedules, the early and the late, and with flex or free blocks in between.
Okay, and what was your reaction when you heard that? Because this does mean school for some may start as early as 8 a.m. And do you know how late it would go?
We have not been given a lot of details yet. We're still waiting.
Okay, what did you think when you heard about it?
Concerned, and how it's going to affect families, because there's so many things that could be impacted. We've talked everything about kids, families who have multiple children. If one child is starting earlier, one is starting later, coming home later, that can cause stress. Just a lot of extra work. Lots of families will have, if they've got a younger child and an older one, the older child could be watching the younger one until the parents come home for work in between those little gaps.
Right.
So there's that consideration. And then at the school, if kids are going to have different start and end times, how does that affect extracurricular activities before and after school, and as well at lunchtime? Because a lot of activities and clubs happen at lunch. And if you've got two different schedules, then we're assuming that you're going to have two different lunch hours as well.
Right.
So lots of different ways, the whole community, the sense of community in a school for the students, all the staff as well as our high schools have a flex time that's built in the morning. And that is time that our students can come to get extra help from their teachers. So it's usually, just the portion before. So it's usually like 8:40 to say 9:05. Kids can come in to, rewrite tests, things like that, just get extra help. So from what I understand, if we go to this extended schedule, that flex time would be then gone.
Okay.
So again, we don't know details, but that's
scenarios running through your head, and that's a good point about just how workable that is for families and that sense of community as well. If you're not in the same schedule as other students necessarily from the same from different grades. Let me just go to a caller here. We're asking you, do you think staggered school schedules are a workable solution to crowded schools? So we have the Burnaby School District considering this for 5 secondary schools for the next school year. And we know that 5 schools in Surrey have tried this as well this past year. Let us know if you're in Surrey what that's been like for you. But tell us your thoughts on a staggered school schedule. Does that what impact does that have? Is it workable? 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. And we're going to hear from our other guests as well about the bigger picture of all of this when it comes to school planning and the need for more school spaces and classroom spaces given increases in population. Let's go right now to Chris in Powell River. Hi there, Chris.
Oh, hello.
Thanks for calling. Have you had this experience?
I have. I'm actually in Nelson, British Columbia.
My apologies. Yes.
Okay, I had this experience. Roughly 1970, I attended Centennial High School in Coquitlam, and we had staggered classes because the Port Moody High School had burned down, and so they combined the two populations. And so the first classes started at 8, and the last class ended at 8 in the evening.
8 in the evening?
8 in the evening. So this worked very well for my boyfriend who worked evening shift at the sawmill. He took all his classes in the morning, and then he could have a break and then go to work. That worked really well for him, and there were quite a few other students who did something similar. And I liked to go to school early, so I did my courses all early in the day, and then I had the afternoon. I could do all of my homework fairly quickly and have the rest of the data myself. Now, the school system was broken up so that there were 4 semesters. There were still summer holidays, 4 semesters. In each semester, a student was expected to take 3 classes at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So you might have math, English, and geography. Or you might decide you need a semester that's really easy and you'd have art and PE and something else that was light. So I was able to do 4 classes per semester, which meant that I was able to complete my high school in less than 2 years. So partway through, I took 1 semester and traveled, and then I returned to high school to finish off my sciences.
Sounds like an ideal situation. You make it sound like utopia almost.
It was wonderful for me.
Yeah.
And for my boyfriend and for my friends, but I'm sure there were students that it was a great difficulty, but it worked very well for some of us.
Yeah.
We were able to, we were asked to select the classes we wanted and sort of like at university where you select what courses you want and what time you'd like and what teacher you'd like. So it started there with the students making their selections, and then of course it had to be massaged to make it all fit.
Right. And in terms of the high school, this was because of a school that burned down. Is that right?
That's correct.
Did that ever, was that particular school rebuilt? Like, did things go back to normal after?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had graduated by the time they went back, so it was a full 2 years. It was only grades 11 and 12 in the school.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about more mature
Right. Yeah.
students. And yeah,
Chris,
it was great.
I appreciate your sharing that with us. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, good luck to all the students who have to deal with whatever goes on now.
Thank you so much for the call. Yes, we heard a couple there who are not too happy about having to wake up early. And I do have some kids who would relate to that for sure. Thanks for the call, Chris. And take care. Again, our number is 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. Your thoughts on a staggered school schedule to deal with crowded schools. Now, her situation in her school went from 8 a.m. and they had classes all the way till 8 p.m. And as we heard from our guests, they don't quite know the details yet of what's going to take place. But this is something that's being floated and sent out in a letter to parents. And we do have a statement from the school district, as we did reach out to them, and I'll just pull it up for you here. So this is a statement from the superintendent, Kareem Hachiev of Burnaby School District, and he says that the pace of growth at many of our high schools is such that we can't wait to build ourselves out of the capacity issues we are immediately facing. And that's why we're looking at the possibility of changing the format of the school day for next fall by adding an additional block for classes that would increase capacity by allowing student schedules to be staggered. He writes, we are very much mindful of the impact that any shift would have on students, families, and school staff, which is why we're looking to keep potential changes to a minimum. So that's a statement posted on the website of the Burnaby School District. We did request an interview with them. Let me introduce now our other guest as well, who's waiting on the line with us. And again, I've been speaking with Harinder Parmar, the chair of the Burnaby District Parent Advisory Council. Morton Rand Hendrickson is a member of the Burnaby DPAC. Hi there, Morton. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Now, you look at the bigger picture of this, and I know you've been posting on TikTok about this letter, and you actually don't blame the school district, but the provincial government for planning and the way it funds schools. So let me know about what your concerns are there.
Yeah, it's important to understand what's actually happening here, because while this sounds like the school district's making some changes to high schools, the cost of those changes needing to happen is the school system in Burnaby and in many other districts throughout BC is extremely overtaxed. Like, it's overpopulated for the size of schools we have. And that in turn is caused by the province, who's responsible for building schools, not building sufficient schools. This is not a new problem. This is a problem that spanned multiple decades across several different governments. And it's now a problem that's gone so far that the school districts are tampering with the actual structure of school to fit the students in. And in that conversation, there are many pieces that easily fall out because the system is kind of opaque and hard to understand. So basically, the province builds schools, then pays the school districts money per student that's in the school district to operate the schools, provide education, etc. Those budgets that the school district gets are ironclad. They cannot go over those budgets. If the school district doesn't have enough room for the student mass that's in the district at the time, the only thing the school district can do is either build a portable or do something to the school day. And the Burnaby School District and the Surrey School District and several other school districts have built portables out of the operating budget, resulting in cuts to everything else in an effort to fit the students. At this point, there isn't enough space to build more portables, and this district also doesn't have any money to build portables because every portable that's built in your school district is paid for through cuts to educational programs within your school district.
So what do you think should be done?
We need a systemic change here because part of the thing that's happening is the cities dramatically build out because cities benefit from more people coming into the city. So in Burnaby, we have huge areas that are being built up with towers and large amounts of new areas for people to live. When that happens, the necessary schools may take 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years to be built if they are built at all. And by that time, we have maybe 2,000 new students who have nowhere to go. This is a problem that the school district knows about and informs the government about. It's a problem the school board knows about and informs the government about. And it's a problem the government knows but isn't addressing. Instead, they're kind of pushing the responsibility back down on the school district to say, well, you figure it out, which is how we end up here. What needs to happen is there has to be coordination between the cities and the province and the school districts as an information session where the cities say, hey, we're planning on building out this area. Then the province goes to the school district and says, how much more school do you need? And then the school district says, well, this requires this many more seats in classrooms. The province then properly funds that immediately and builds the school so they are ready on day one when the students come in. Because what's happening now is the opposite. The city builds out huge areas as they're supposed to. The school district tells the province, hey, we're going to get an influx of new students. We have nowhere to put them. The province does nothing. And then the school district has to cut the budgets to figure out how to fit the students in. It's a dysfunctional system that has been like this for decades and decades and decades. And I think because all of us, no matter where we grew up, have gone through a school system that was in some way dysfunctional, we're kind of okay with this idea that, well, you know, the school system works sufficiently. The problem we're having now is this is the end stage. When the district has no money left to build portables and is starting to mess with the school day, the next step in that process would be either to maybe add a new semester, a trimester into the school year, or to think about other solutions like online learning or doing something else. Meanwhile, we still don't have more schools and more students are coming in. The long-range facilities report from Burnaby says that they estimate by 2033, there will be 15,000 new students in Burnaby School District alone. There is no room for any of those students.
You know, we actually have a call here from someone in New Westminster as well, who is chair of the District Parent Advisory Council there. Laura in New Westminster, hello, thanks for calling.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes.
I would like to, everything that Morton is explaining here about how funding for schools and school budgets works is absolutely bang on. And this issue of moving to an extended timetable or a 5-block model, it's been called, is something that our district is looking at to implement next year. We've been lucky to have a bit of a runway in implementing this of over a year here. So our district has engaged in some extensive consultation with families, with staff, will be impacted by this change. So we're a little bit lucky in that way. We weren't just surprised with a letter in our inboxes one morning that this change was coming in our district.
So this has been a year that they've been consulting?
Yes. So last year, at the end of the last school year, it was presented as an option to deal with the extreme capacity issues in our district. We are a relatively small district in land mass in particular, and we have one high school on which there is no space to put portables. And so looking at an extended timetable is really one of the few options on the table for ensuring that every student has a space in the school, which is what the districts are obligated to provide.
And what are your thoughts on it?
There's really no other great options. Districts are faced with making these choices because there are no other choices to make. In our district, we are looking at some other changes as well in tandem with moving to a 5-block model next year. International student numbers have been reduced and will be reduced in the coming year as well. And that's a move that has a real big impact on a district's budget. We've also had a couple of core courses that are required for all students to graduate. Those are moved fully online. So students who may not, online learning may not be a great fit for them, are forced to take those courses online because there is no in-person option for those courses. So this is just one of the tools that districts are looking at to deal with the severe capacity issues, which are a symptom of failures in planning for schools and school spaces that have been, over multiple governments.
Can I confirm then with you, Laura, that this is going to happen in New Westminster next school year?
Yes, right now it looks like we're heading in that direction. Consultation with our local teachers union and our local QP staff has reached its end stages, and district staff are preparing a couple options for what timetables could look like that will come out to families this fall. So yeah, we are in the final stages of looking at implementation for this next year.
Really appreciate hearing from you. Thanks so much for the call.
You're welcome. Thank you.
That's Laura in New Westminster, who is the chair of the DPAC there, and saying that this is the staggered school schedule is something that is going to roll out in New Westminster next school year. Hazel is calling us now from Vancouver to share her experience of a different school schedule. Hi, Hazel.
Hello.
Thanks for calling. What are your thoughts?
Well, this has been really interesting because I'm one of the baby boomers. So this happened frequently in my school years and in many provinces. It's happened in Saskatchewan in grade school. There's just too many of us, so they put 4 classes in one gymnasium.
Right.
I think we were there for the whole year.
Wow.
And there was just little panel dividers between us. And school certainly was different then.
Yes. Well, what do you think when you hear, about this happening now? And we heard earlier from some teenagers who said they weren't too excited about an 8 a.m. start.
Well, so I went to half days myself, but I also have a sleep disorder, and I'm quite an expert in sleep. And that young man was exactly right. And many schools have made this change, and it's in going to later starts, especially for older teenagers.
Yeah,
it's absolutely a success.
Okay, Hazel, thank you very much.
I'm so in studying teens. It's not that they don't want to get up. Their body's not ready to get up. Their brain's not ready to work.
There is research around that, isn't there? Hazel, I really appreciate hearing from you. Thank you very much. I just want to move on here because we do have a call from the past chair of the District Parent Advisory Council in Surrey, where they have had this experience this year, and Dean is on the line from Surrey. I have just a couple of minutes, Dean, but I would love to hear from you. What did you want to say?
Yes, I missed the beginning of the segment, but as you know, Surrey's been the center of this for decades. Apparently, they started using portables in 1956, which I was surprised to hear, but, it's become a lot more common in the last 20 or 30 years. And it's not going away. Now, the Band-Aid is to build these modular additions, which are second best. They're permanent, but they've got maybe a 20-year lifespan. They're taking up the school fields. You're actually kind of lucky if your school's on a hill and it's unsuitable for one of these modules, because the elementary school my kids went to has lost its grass field to this module that's being built.
Right. These are now just recently being announced in Surrey. Now,
in the last couple of years, yeah.
Yes. And can you tell me a bit about how the schedule, do you know how the schedule has worked out in the last year?
Yes. The high school in my old neighborhood there, Fleetwood Park, has now gone to this 5-block schedule. And when it was first announced, it sounded like some kids are going to start early, some kids are going to finish late. And that sounded like that's not going to work, because now you have everybody in the school in the middle. Well, of course it didn't work. And what they've got is, yes, some start early, some finish late, but most of them are early and late. And then they've got an extra break in the middle of the day. The lunch has moved so early, they call it brunch. And you might end up with an extended brunch depending on where your off block falls.
So have there been complaints about it then?
Oh yeah, and we don't know where this is going to end up going. They may have to do it in a lot more schools. They've got it in 7 out of 20 schools, 7 out of 20 high schools in Surrey right now. They may have to go to it in more schools. There's an addition planned for Fleetwood Park, which was announced. It was promised during the last election, but it's actually going to get underway next year. So it's a good 5 years of waiting for this addition, by which time the SkyTrain will be in the neighborhood, and there's going to be that many more kids in the neighborhood. So unless they get another brick and mortar school in the neighborhood, it's just going to be full when the addition opens.
More growth. Dean, I'm so glad that you called in. Thank you very much. And that goes to what one of our guests, Morton Van Hendrickson, was talking about in terms of long-term planning that's needed for this issue. I do have to wrap it up there. It sounds like we could spend more time on this issue. Harinder and Morton, thank you so much for your time. Glad to hear from you.
Thank you for covering this issue. It's very important. Thank you.
Absolutely. Harinder Parmar is Burnaby District Parent Advisory Council Chair. Morton Van Hendrickson is a member of the Burnaby DPAC. That's it for us, and do stay tuned. We'll bring you again Sonia Furstenau live coming up in about 2-3 minutes from now on our YouTube. And our YouTube page is CBC British Columbia. You can go there to watch Sonia Furstenau speak to media about the BC election, or you can go to our website, cbc.ca/BC. We will be carrying it live. You can also use the CBC News app. This is BC Today. We are extending the program on our online platforms in order to bring you live a news conference being held any moment now by Green Party leader Sonia Furstenau. Now, you can catch us on our YouTube page, that's CBC British Columbia, or on the CBC News app, or our website, cbc.ca/BC. And I see that we have the shot on the podium already, so we're just awaiting Sonia Furstenau to arrive and speak. This is, of course, the first time that she'll be speaking to media since the election on Saturday. And as it stands, the NDP are leading or elected in 46 ridings, the Conservatives in 45. Elections BC will conduct a final count this weekend and into early next week. Now, yesterday, BC NDP leader David Eby also spoke. He said that whenever the Green Party is ready, the NDP is willing to talk. I see that Sonia Furstenau is coming up to the podium now. Let's go live as she prepares to speak.
Just stand to the side there. That's good. Stand there. That's good. Jeremy on the other side. And Sonia over here.
And she's just about to speak there. She is accompanied by the two elected Green MLAs, Green candidates, Jeremy Valeriot and Rob Botterill, who were elected in their ridings, and she's just being introduced at the moment. And of course, these will be two new MLAs. And Sonia Furstenau did not win in the riding where she decided to run, which is Victoria Beacon Hill. She lost to the
Thank you,
incumbent
Kylie.
Grace
Thank you, everybody,
Lore.
for coming.
Here is Sonia Furstenau.
For 7 years, I've worked very hard to serve my constituents in the province as an MLA, upholding the values of the BC Green Party. I am fiercely proud that we have elected two excellent Green MLAs. The BC Greens have played an important role in the legislature for the last 7 years, and we will continue to do so in this parliament and in future parliaments in BC. I want to take an opportunity to thank all of the candidates who ran for the BC Greens and the teams who supported them. I got into politics because I felt that a government decision put my community at risk, and I was so disappointed in government, which I believed and still believe should be a force of good in society. I was so disappointed that government was making decisions that were so counter to what I hoped for and expected. The last 7 years have been driven by the same commitment to public trust and good governance that pulled me into running for local government 10 years ago. Right now in BC, no party deserves all the power. Based on preliminary results, it looks like the people of BC have made it clear they lack full confidence in either of the other two parties. In light of this election and the critical time that we're in, I remain committed to ensuring the outcomes serve the people of BC. This has been my orientation since becoming an MLA, how to best serve constituents, how to best serve this province. I spoke with David Eby this morning. I have not spoken with John Rustad. There have been statements made by Conservative candidates that are truly disturbing, racist, dehumanizing, homophobic, and conspiratorial. Some of these candidates have been elected, and I have yet to see a satisfactory response from John Rustad around this. Elected representatives have a serious burden and responsibility to hold themselves to a high standard and to see themselves as representatives for everyone in their communities. It's John Rustad's responsibility now to ensure that his caucus understands the seriousness of the burden of being an elected representative. My focus now is on supporting our two MLA-elects, Rob Botterill and Jeremy Valeriot, and engaging in meaningful conversations about how we can better serve the people of this province. For me, it's always been about public service. Our platform prioritizes people's well-being, and my motivation has always been guided by the question, how do we best serve? I'm happy at this time to be taking questions. Thank you.
How do you want to do it?
Kylie?
Oh.
Just raise your hand and I'll
Questions from the floor? Yeah, we'll start with questions.
Hi.
Hi, Rob.
Are you unwilling to work with Mr. Rustad? And when you say you need to hear some acknowledgement from him, what specifically do you need to hear, or is it just off the table working with him?
I have not yet spoken with John Rustad. I have concerns about statements his candidates have made and positions his party has taken on many issues, including climate change. My focus right now is on supporting our two MLAs and engaging in meaningful conversations about how the people of BC can be best served. Until the final vote count is in, I'm focused on the two MLAs.
Can you say at all what you might be interested in partnering with a future government on? Are there specific things you want to go into these conversations with? Or?
The starting place is our platform. I really invite people to become familiar with the BC Green platform.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question.
Hi, Sonia.
Shannon.
I've heard from several people since the election results who are disappointed about your loss. They really feel that having you missing from the legislature is going to be a loss. And they're confused about why you picked Victoria Beacon Hill, which is one of the strongest NDP ridings in the province. Can you, I know you've talked about it before, can you explain again a bit about that decision-making process and maybe whether you wish you'd made a different choice?
I'll start, Shannon. I am so humbled by the messages and the response that I've had since Saturday night. I mean, truly humbled. I've had people from across the entire political spectrum reach out to me and express their disappointment that I won't be in the legislature. I don't regret that I ran where our family is, where we are expecting a grandchild, where I lived for more than 20 years before moving to Cowichan. I'm proud of the campaign that we ran, and I am now focused on ensuring that we are in meaningful conversations moving forward.
Given the results, which may still shift at least a bit, how do you see actually representing the interests of British Columbians, given it looks like people are pretty polarized? How do you serve interests that in some ways seem diametrically opposed?
You know, our platform really looks at trying to understand why we're getting the outcomes we're getting in BC right now. And from that place of understanding, the platform offers solutions that are rooted in how can government be more effective at delivering the services it should be delivering. That's been my guiding question for 7 years, and that continues to be my guiding question.
Thank you. We'll just get on the phone lines first.
Well, we'll go from the floor, I think, and then, yeah.
Okay. Both the Conservatives and the NDP sort of during the campaign said we don't like the carbon tax anymore, and you guys want the carbon tax. How are you going to work that out?
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about anything specific until the vote tallies are in, and the conversations that we have will be focused on ensuring that we are getting meaningful and important outcomes for British Columbians.
Can I ask you, I mean,
Go ahead, please.
You got burnt by the last agreement you had with the NDP, and then at the tail end of this campaign, there's candidates, or people like Rob Fleming was retweeting things saying, you know, what a crazy idea you had, advising people to vote for the best candidate. And, you know, David Eby was counseling people not to vote for Green candidates, and Jeremy was riding, for example, because he would split the vote. Tell me how you could make an agreement with the NDP if that's the case. You've expressed your misgivings about the Conservatives, but obviously there's reasons why you've been burnt by the NDP. Would be more inclined to do a vote-by-vote agreement, or would a CASA still be something you'd entertain given this history?
Yeah, I think it's really important to recognize that my orientation since being elected to office 10 years ago has been, how do I best serve people? How do I best serve? If I were to take everything personally that's ever been said about me, I would be incapacitated. It's not personal. I'm honored to have been able to serve in the way that I've served for 7 years as an MLA. And my focus right now is on how do we have a government that really effectively serves people.
I wanted to circle back to the Conservatives in response to Rob. You talked about these concerns about candidates as well as multiple policy issues where you have a significant difference. Is there any world where you could have an agreement with the Conservatives?
I think it's really up to John Rustad to demonstrate what kind of leadership he has at this point. And he has not been responding to, I think, very direct questions about things that his candidates have said.
Thank you.
You said a couple times that you haven't spoken with Mr. Rustad. I was wondering if you could clarify that a bit. Like, has there anybody reached out from either side? Have you reached out to him? Has he reached out to you?
Both David Eby and John Rustad have reached out. I had a conversation with David Eby this morning.
Take it from that you didn't take Mr. Rustad's call, but that's not a follow-up. You've been very clear. You've been very clear over the. I mean, you can answer if you want, but you've been very clear over the years that Green MLAs aren't whipped. So I'd be very curious to hear from Mr. Botter and Mr. Valerian. Apologies for mispronouncing that. Whether you agree with your leader's assessment of the Conservatives in particular and where things stand.
Sure, thank you. I certainly support Sonia's interpretation and path forward, and that really is the key, is focusing on the platform is a wonderful framework and largely supported framework for the path forward, and we'll be waiting until next week, I guess, to see exactly where things settle out.
Yeah, same thing, in full support. I also have the same concerns about some of the statements made by Conservative candidates and support Sonia's assessment and path forward on this, and also waiting until final count to see what the configuration is once all the ballots are counted.
Thank you. We've heard David Eby say a few times recently that much of the NDP's vision is shared by the Greens. Could you highlight some of the differences between the Greens platform and the NDP's?
I think we just had an entire election campaign about that, actually. And so right now, my focus is on supporting Rob and Jeremy. They have hit the ground running. They are already working on setting up their constituency offices, on getting to understand the legislature, on understanding how to be the most effective MLAs they can be. That's really an enormous amount of my attention and concern right now. The conversations around differences in platforms and visions is really for another time and after the final vote's in.
And throughout the campaign, we heard from you that the Greens were focusing on several ridings, 6, 7, 8, 9 ridings. And winning 2 and having neither of the other parties be in the majority, is that mission accomplished for the Greens?
I did keep saying, don't give either of these powers all the power, or either of these parties all the power. There's no, for me and for Greens, the mission is how does government best serve the people of BC? That's the mission.
Thank you. Ms. Furstenau. And forgive me if this has been asked. LNG, I know you don't want to get into specifics, but that's got to be you're against the wall in terms of starting position.
Our starting position is our platform, and the meaningful conversations will happen after all the votes are counted.
I do know that you had some regrets about the negotiations of the first process. Anything spring to mind that you would like to share that you maybe are intent on rectifying this time around?
I'll just say this. Pretty sure I'm going to be the only person involved in these negotiations that was involved in the negotiations 7 years ago. And I bring 7 years of experience in the legislature, of working across party lines, across jurisdictions. And that experience is earned experience. And that's what I will be bringing to the work ahead of us.
Thank you. Do you have any more questions?
Even though you lost your seat, you must be happy you got two MLAs that can push the agenda in British Columbia.
I am delighted that we have 2 MLAs, not just 2 MLAs, an MLA on the Lower Mainland, an MLA an MLA elect, I'll keep the terminology correct here, who came within 60 votes of winning in 2020, and with Rob Botterill, we've demonstrated that a green riding can successfully succeed from a longstanding MLA like Adam Olsen, and that the voters have shown their confidence in having a green MLA for that riding. I'm very delighted to have seen the election of these two excellent representatives.
Just follow up, in terms of, you said you've had a call from both David Eby and John Rustad. To be clear, did you not take John Rustad's call, or you just?
Yeah, I did not take the call. I didn't recognize the phone number.
And don't plan to.
Can I ask one more? David Eby has suggested that once the final result is out, if they are still government, we might be going back into the legislature very quickly. Is that a concern for you, or are you keen to see the legislature resume?
I don't think I'll be, I mean, I'm focused right now on supporting Jeremy and Rob, on focusing on good governance. Good governance includes the legislature. The legislature is where government does its work.
Can you're staying on as leader. I don't totally understand the mechanics of the Greens, but do you have to go to a vote for that? Does the party continue to elect you leader? Is there like an internal mechanism you have to do, or?
So currently I am the elected leader of the BC Green Party, the only leader of a party that was elected by the membership. I have the confidence of the council, and I will continue to work in this role. There will be in the future an AGM, and the membership will have an opportunity to participate in shaping the future of this party.
Thank you. Should we move on to the phone lines and questions?
Our first question on the line is from Wolfgang Deppner, Black Press Media.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sonia, thank you for taking my question. I'll start with the following question. Is this a case of PR or bust for the party with the
I really can, I recommend people look at the BC Green platform, and until all the votes are tallied, we won't be engaging in any conversations about any specifics.
Yeah, I have to try. Do you have any preference for any future relationship with the BC and NDP, as to it would be a confidence and supply agreement or a vote by vote situation?
Yeah.
Give me a hand one more another this day. I got it out try.
Yeah, well, for right now, I'm focused on supporting the two MLAs, and won't be talking about any specifics of any kind like that.
Our second question from the line is from Richard Zusman, Global.
Sonia, sorry I'm not there in person. Thank you for your service. Rob, Jeremy, congratulations to the two of you. Is there any time frame in your mind, Sonia? I know you mentioned the AGM, but do you have any thoughts at this point about how long you would like to stay in this role as leader? And has there been any thought you've given yet to whether you'd like to be the leader by the time we get to a next provincial election, whenever that may be?
I'm focused on the task that's right in front of us right now, and I'm happy to be in the role that I'm in as leader of the party right now.
Rob, Jeremy, to both of you, has the weight of this gotten to you yet in terms of, coming into the legislature, as Sonia described it, getting oriented, figuring out this job, but at the same time, it may be in your hands to determine who the premier of the province is. Has the weight of that got to either one of you yet?
I think it's mostly sunk in, Richard. There's lots of work to do to prepare for that weight to fully land in the next few days, and I think both of us have been thinking about this for some time, and we're ready to do the work and get this get the solutions for British Columbians that are needed and go forward. So it's a lot, but ready to get started.
Yeah, I'm certainly ready to get started, and this has been a great first week where we've been working on getting briefed up and also setting up our constituency office. And my shoulders aren't sinking yet, so I'm really looking forward to this, and I feel very comfortable with where we're at. And you know, it's really a huge benefit to have Sonia as our leader, staying and mentoring us and leading us as we work through applying the framework, which is a fabulous platform to the work ahead. Thanks.
Our next question from the line is from Mira Baines, CBC.
Thank you for taking my question. We've covered a lot of ground here, so I'm just going to ask you a crazy question. Sonia, I know that you don't really want to go into detail, but is it out of the realm of possibility to request one of your MLAs to have like a role in cabinet?
Yeah, Mira, I'm not going to be commenting on anything like that at this point.
Okay, great. Just another question en français, if you can. I think we've already heard it in English, but in French, Sonia, can you just tell us, about you speaking to David Eby and not John Rustad, and why en français?
En français. Alors, j'ai parlé avec David Eby ce matin, mais j'ai pas encore parlé avec John Rustad. Il y a des choses que ces candidats ont dit pendant cette élection et avant, et j'ai pas entendu ce que John Rustad va faire avec ces circonstances. C'est une responsabilité très sérieuse d'être un représentatif élu, et vous êtes élu pour représenter tout le monde dans votre communauté, et il y a une question de leadership pour John Rustad de répondre avec ce qu'il pense d'avoir des représentatifs qui ont dit des choses qui étaient dites.
The next question from the line is from Melinda Trochu, CBC Radio-Canada.
Madame Furstenau, en français encore, quelle est votre priorité ces jours-ci?
Pour moi, la priorité maintenant, c'est de supporter nos représentatifs qui ont été élus, Rob et Jeremy, et de donner le support pour qu'ils peuvent être le meilleur représentatif possible. C'est très important pour le Parti vert d'avoir la représentation qui est très forte, et je suis content, très content avec l'élection de Rob et Jeremy.
Dans le cas où les Verts auraient la balance du pouvoir, quelle sera l'attitude de votre parti?
Nous allons attendre aux élections de Colombie-Britannique d'avoir les numéros finaux pour l'élection. Et après ça, nous allons avoir des discussions sur tout ça.
Merci.
The next question is from Mary Brooke, Island Social Trends.
Go ahead, Mary.
Hi. Yeah, congratulations on returning 2 MLAs to the legislature. The well-being framework that you've presented in your platform, I've been reading through that, and I'm just wondering, with all the mechanics of dealing with the current situation of who might be in power, how much of that platform paradigm do you expect to be able to shift in the next year or two?
Right now, Mary, I'm really focused on supporting these MLAs elect and ensuring that they're getting a good start to their work, especially as constituency MLAs. We're waiting for the final vote to come in, and we will be engaging in conversations after that.
You're preparing in that way, and I'm also wondering how municipalities might prepare in responding to that part of your platform that talks about resilient communities. What should they be preparing to ask for from this government?
We just had another atmospheric river. It claimed the lives of 3 people in this province. The events that we will continue to see from climate change are serious. They're not going to go away, and we need to take seriously. And I've heard from local governments again and again, and we saw this at UBCM, the ways in which they are understanding how these climate change-driven events are impacting their communities, their infrastructure, the people who live there. This is a serious issue, and I appreciate how seriously local governments take it.
Our next question is from Andrea Wu, Globe and Mail.
Andrea?
We can't hear you.
Hi, sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Great, sorry about that. Thank you for taking my question. Sonia, you had said that you don't want to get into any specifics right now about a potential supply and confidence agreement, et cetera. But could you give a sense of what the conversation with David Eby was like this morning?
It was a conversation.
Oh, come on.
Do you have a follow-up, Andrea?
I do. What would John Rustad have to do for the Greens to consider working with the Conservatives? You had mentioned being troubled by the statements of some of the candidates. So would you be seeking a public denunciation? Would they have to be kicked out of the party? Like, what would do it for you?
That's really a question for John Rustad to be contemplating right now as the leader of a party, and to be considering what it is to be an elected representative and the responsibility that that carries.
And we have time for one more question.
The final question from the line is from Wildenette, Radio Canada.
Can't hear you. Oh.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Bonjour, Madame Furstenau. Félicitations aux 2 candidats. Merci de prendre ma question. Alors, j'aimerais savoir quelles pourraient être vos demandes en cas de gouvernement minoritaire et en cas d'entente. Je sais que vous avez évoqué que votre priorité, c'est de mettre l'accent sur les priorités là, de votre plateforme. Mais est-ce que vous pouvez nous donner un aperçu? Quelles pourraient être
You have been listening to BC Green Party leader Sonia Furstenau, and you also heard there the 2 Green MLAs-elect, Jeremy Valeriot and Rob Botterill. Now, Sonia Furstenau said she's proud of the campaign she ran, though she lost her race for the riding of Victoria Beacon Hill to NDP incumbent Grace Lohr. Furstenau said both the NDP leader, David Eby, and the Conservative leader, John Rustad, have reached out to her. She says she spoke with David Eby this morning. She said she has not spoken with Conservative leader John Rustad. She said she didn't recognize the phone number. And she also said she's concerned about disturbing statements made by Conservative candidates. And she says that she has not seen a satisfactory response from John Rustad on that. And although reporters pressed her, Furstenau would not speak specifically to any negotiations with David Eby and said she would wait until the final count was completed to have those meaningful conversations. Much more on this throughout the day here on CBC. Sonia Furstenau will join Gloria Makarenko on the coast after the 5 o'clock news, and Jason D'Souza on All Points West at 5:20. After the 5:30 news, she will join Sarah Penton on Radio West. That's coming up this afternoon. Now, you heard her talk about David Eby there. Yesterday, we did hear from the NDP leader, and he said that whenever the Green Party is ready, the NDP is willing to talk.
We are preparing for what we hope is the likely outcome of the counting without taking anything for granted. We're making sure that we're ready to go. We have a team in place to engage in conversations with MLAs about how we're going to move forward on this, including with the Green Party, and nothing's off the table. We'll have those conversations. And we'll find a way to make the legislature work for British Columbians on the priorities that they sent us back to Victoria to work on.
Meanwhile, on Monday, BC Conservative leader John Rustad told the CBC's Stephen Quinn how his party will respond to the final results, whatever they may be.
My hope is, come Saturday, that the Conservative Party will have the opportunity to form a government.
Of course.
That's my hope. And so we'll see what comes out of that. Should we still be in the minority situation, we will be looking and working with other MLAs, Green Party or others, to look at an opportunity to be able to govern in this province. Should we end up in a situation where there's a minority government of the NDP that is in power in British Columbia, if they're carrying forward with the policies that they are promising to do, which have brought so much destruction and pain in this province, especially to our resource sector in British Columbia, and they'll know I cannot support that, and I will try to bring their government down at the earliest possible opportunity.
Okay, and so in the meantime, though, if you do not get the votes, do you plan to court the Green Party to try to get them on side so you can govern?
Well, there's clearly lots of differences between the Green Party platform and the Conservative Party platform. So, however, there are some things that we could find in terms of common ground. So we're going to be open to having conversations. We haven't blocked off any sort of ideas, whether that's working with the Green Party or others in the legislature that could potentially form an opportunity to govern in British Columbia.
That is BC Conservative leader John Rustad speaking on CBC on Monday. And Sonia Furstenau has wrapped up her press conference. She has left the podium, and this is where she said she spoke with David Eby this morning and wouldn't give any details, though, as to that conversation. She says she has not spoken with Conservative leader John Rustad, and she says that have been some comments made by Conservative candidates that she says the leader of the Conservative Party needs to address. Much more on this throughout the day here on CBC. I'm Michelle Elliott. Thanks so much for joining us.